Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I hope you're doing well. Hello, Key Energy. Good to see you. Kind of impressed you managed to get here the moment I went live. Hello, Necomancer. Bonjour. Welcome in. Checking literally every moment, and somehow someone else beat you to the punch. You know what? I'm impressed with Key Energy too. So that's pretty cool. Aries wonders, what's this? A wild Aries appears. Hello, Aries. Welcome in. It's been a hot minute. Good to have you here with us. Why does it say stream has been going on for 6 hours? I have no idea. My current dashboard says it's been going on for 8 minutes. So I'm actually 6 hours early. Boy, if only, Necromancer. All the same. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I hope you're all having a wonderful time. I know I've been having quite a lot of fun with... Oh my goodness, why is this not... Okay, there we go. Quite a lot of fun with this story, and it's good to be back and to see everybody. But yeah, so... we are tonight reading Raising the Last Monster. We'll be starting at chapter 3, chapter 2, Terrors Begin. And we're just going to more or less dive back in here. Last time we got introduced to a spider woman who is from the local tribe and has discovered the time travelers, originally named Bellitus, and I believe they've picked a new name for the baby, but Parsons has a little bit of a time referring to his new ward by name. And then Parsons, a four-armed, crocodilian-snouted creature that stands about 9 feet tall and is forever inside of an environmental suit. Shalana. Okay, thank you, Necromancer. And am I saying that right? Shalana? Naruto, welcome in. Hello, good to see you. Always happy to have you around. I don't know if you're going to be running immediately, but it's always nice to see you. Welcome in. How have you been doing? Shalana is close enough. Awesome. Heck yeah. So yeah, we've got this rather remarkable cast. And last time Parsons has basically been frozen, suspended next to Shalana, this little baby of a race that his entire race was wiped out by, and in return he has wiped out a very large majority of her race. Twitch flagged you for sending messages too fast? Well, that's not cool. The heck's wrong? Twitch, why would you do that? I don't like you throttling my audience. Grr. Absolutely unacceptable. And actually, speaking of absolutely unacceptable, boy, I had a real heck of a moment earlier. I don't know if anybody watches the YouTube VODs when I post them, but I bumped into this advertisement that just absolutely offended the heck out of me. And originally I was like, well, that's probably just YouTube being weird about, like, not understanding who I am. But, yeah, then I realized YouTube thinks I'm a child. So they're advertising the same stuff to children, and I'm like, oh, this just took a new level of nope. Oh, Pa, welcome in. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Let's get you shouted out here. Necromancer, you do have mod privileges. Are you interested in giving Nala Vampa a shout out for me? When did this 3D model come in? This 3D model is one that I've been using for several months now, actually. I made it back at the start of winter, switching out of my Halloween costume. So we now use here, I can show off my model a little bit. Sure, why not? So, oh goodness, how do I do this? Is it... No, that's rotate, that's rotate. That's nothing. There we go. Ha ha! Victory is mine! But yeah, so this is the outfit that I created for my avatar during the winter months. And so it's the textures are mostly procedurally generated, although the actual embroidery on here is something that I designed in Inkscape and then used a shader to blit onto the outfit. So, it's a bit simpler than what I was wearing before in some ways, but it has some additional details that were missing from the outfit that I was using. And I'll need to create another one when we finally get to summer and switch back over. Twitch thinks you're a child's paw. I believe it. That sounds like the kind of thing that that Twitch would absolutely believe. Let's get you shouted out here, Paw. For those not already familiar with Nala Vampaw, we've rated out to her a few times, but she is a streamer who mostly does Legend of Zelda type speedruns, but does a variety of games, and also dances sometimes, and those dances are super fun to watch. I've hung out with Paul for quite a few years in VR chat prior to, I think I actually knew Paul before I started streaming. So, oh, mobile doesn't like you shouting people out? Yeah, I get that, Necromancer. I'm sorry. You've been gone due to school, Aries? Well, welcome back in. It's good to have you here with us. Love Zelda and dancing? I agree, Neco. So yeah, if you get a chance, check Paw out. They're definitely really cool. I need to check one of those speedruns out then. Yeah, we met back in 2021. That's right. Right around the time that pandemic stuff was lifting. Oh dear. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But yeah, welcome in. We are just going to be reading a book that was written by one of the audience members here. So Necromancer is the author of this, and I've been enjoying the story, potentially a little bit too much. It's a very fun, very cheeky science fiction book. So, yeah, I think we'll just more or less roll back into this here. But yeah, it's good to see everybody. It's Necromancer. Necromancer is a Necromancer. I believe it. Alright, we'll switch the music over here. Make sure it's properly balanced this time, because last time it was just a titch too loud. And we'll dive right in to Chapter 3. Chapter 2, Terrors Begin. Parsons had been driving Termi for some time. He was afraid to sleep. The last time he slept, he woke up hundreds of years later, and now there were strange spider people, and one of them was following him. It was still better than the last time he slept before that, though. That sleep had dreams. He did not want dreams any longer. Still, weariness was hitting him. He had been awake for days at this point, and he knew driving was not the greatest idea. He looked behind him, Falor watching over the baby. The entire vehicle had 2 rooms, a bathroom and a room for everything else. He slowly came to a stop and stood up.
Hey, Falor, you should learn to drive this thing so that we can keep going if I need to pass out.
Aries, you need to get going. I understand. Thank you for joining in as long as you did. I hope you're having a wonderful time, whatever you're doing.
Oi, do you sleep? Have you been staying up this whole time? I thought you didn't sleep.
Falor had a way of speaking that reminded him of every adult who had ever had authority over him, despite being at least decades younger. Some people just had that tone. She marched over to him, filled with fear and anxiety, but determination.
Fine, teach me and then get some sleep, you big, dumb idiot.
You know, I am bigger than you.
Parsons grumbled as Falor looked up at him and poked his belly with a chitinous finger.
Only in size. Now, how exactly does this work?
She sat down, and he noticed how much smaller she was than him, and that this might be difficult. Parsons grabbed the steering wheel and adjusted her seat so she could at least reach the pedals and see over the dashboard.
This moves it right or left. Turn it in the direction you want to run it. Under are your pedals. Right stops. Left lets you go.
He fell over suddenly as she hit the left pedal too hard and caused him to roll across the floor. Pa, you're having trouble with your body and with space for dancing. That is rough. I do hope you get to go back to it eventually. It was always very fun to watch you. The crib stayed still. He'd made sure to bolt that thing down, though the baby let out a grumble of annoyance as she was tossed in her sleep. Termi came to a sudden stop. Fowler was behind the wheel, all odd number of eyes wide, shaking slightly.
Okay, be a bit more gentle with the pedal. Got it,
she said, her voice still shaking. She didn't want to try again. This thing scared her. Driving scared her. What if she messed up? What if she hit an animal? What if she hit a person? It was also hard to get a good view, and though the radar seemed to pick up everything she could hit, it was all black and green. There were no colors. If she was going to hit something, she wanted to know what color it was.
I am bigger than you.
only in size.
Was one of Necromancer's favorite exchanges between these two and describes the relationship well. I think so too. It's very fun. Oh, your nursing helps you a lot? Heck yeah. Ooh, gonna get IKEA furniture. Love it. Fowler looked behind her. Parsons struggled to stand up. She remembered he hadn't slept in days now. She put her foot on the pedal and began to slowly drive. His rest was more important than her fear, and after about an hour of coaching, Parsons was finally a heap on the floor, drifting into a nice, dreamless sleep. She watched him for a bit before turning back toward the road and continued to drive. She ran over some things, knocked a tree over, and continued to be absolutely amazed by the power behind Tanami. She felt a rush of power and realized she had purposely knocked that last tree over, felt very bad, and then silently apologized to the tree. A few hours later, the baby began to fuss. Didn't seem like much, but this baby was one of the weirdest she'd ever met. When it was making the smallest of noises, she knew it was important. It was also at this moment she realized she didn't know how to park. She stepped on the brakes until it stood still, got up, and Tanami began to roll forward. She quickly went back to the brake, stepped on it, then began to step away, and the wheels began to roll again. She started to panic when the baby began to outright cry, and she quickly decided, brakes be damned, stood up, and saw Parsons wake up. He was looking down at Shalana. She reached for him and wrapped her two small hands around a very large finger. Parsons just stared at her and realized he felt nothing. No rage, no anger, but no joy either. He was very numb. Fowler sat down and stopped Tanami from moving again.
She probably needs a diaper change.
Right.
Parsons said as he began to grab another diaper from the small but very much treasured boxes of disposable diapers. He feared when they ran out.
I can't smell anything in this damn chute.
A suit? You're wearing a suit?
Fowler looked behind her as she kept Termi still. She had yet to master the rear-view monitor above her. Parsons looked at her for a moment, brain still covered in fog from lack of sleep.
You thought this was my skin?
Well, yes. I've never seen anything like it, or like you. I mean, I've heard rumors of men made of metal. I thought maybe you're one of them, or related to them.
Falor continued, despite her brain telling her not to, and that she was just going to embarrass herself. She ignored that thought in pursuit of knowledge. After a few moments, Parson rewarded her.
I can't leave this chute.
His words came out, numb and dark, since the only other choice was enraged and furious.
The air here is poisoned. Poisoned by people who wished my kind dead. They got their wish.
The tense silence was interrupted by Falor asking,
What people wanted you dead?
only to realize how Parsons looked at Shalana, only to see his grip on the side of the crib grow tighter, only to realize the tension had gotten worse, and worst of all, she was well aware of how Parsons still looked at Shalana. Fella regretted not paying attention to her brain. What she regretted more was not paying attention to the road, as suddenly she ran over a tree that Termi was stuck on. Wheels swirled in the air, mud trapped the poor home, and tomb where it was.
I'll get it,
said Parsons in a voice that bristled with heat under its dull tone. He grabbed the sliding door of the side of Termi and pulled it open before stepping out. He grabbed the tree and began to pull, grunting with effort, as he found it firmly stuck. He tried lifting it, turning it, and eventually pulled it free. Hyper-awareness filtered in past his drowsy brain, and he became very aware of two things. There were multiple footsteps, and he had left his gun inside. He still had his knife, and his hand reached for it. Bad idea. I'm going to ask you to slowly turn around. We got guns on you. We don't want to kill you. Don't give us a reason to change our minds. Parsons slowly turned around and saw people half his size. They had the basic shape of Shalana's people, though slightly taller, with white skin instead of blue. No tails, small slits in their face instead of noses, 3 arms, eyes more like his own kind than Shalana's, and noticeably they had hooves instead of feet. At first he thought the one who talked had oddly patterned skin, but then he realized those were tattoos. They were mostly leather, with some clothes and material here and there. Some of the metal was used as a makeshift armor. They were very odd, and they had guns. Primitive ones powered by gunpowder. One of them had graying hair and a short beard, as well as his tattoos. He was the one who'd talked. In his hands was a shotgun aimed right at Parsons, and his third hand was on a glowing pistol hidden in a holster. It wasn't like the other guns, it was something from Parsons' time. A relic probably as old, if not older, than Parsons. Fucking hell, you're a big one! The others seemed to agree, all but a few keeping their distance. The one with tattoos seemed nervous, but determined. Someone who wanted to project control while knowing it would be taken from him at any time. Okay, here's what's going to happen, giant man. As he talked, Falor grabbed Parsons' gun. Her hands were shaking. She had been shown how to fire it, but never held it. Her body was trembling. She remembered the last time she held a weapon, the last time her brother walked properly. She clutched the gun close, her body still trembling as she tried to stay calm. She might need to fire it. She might need to shoot someone. She was filled with a deep sense of absolute terror, not at the thought of killing someone, but the thought of killing the wrong person. The baby gurgled loudly. The tattoo man stopped talking. You got a kid in there?
Good hearing,
said Parsons as a particularly brave bandit put a gun against Parsons' midsection.
You can go ahead and fire,
he said as he looked down at that brave man. Joey, welcome in! Have you told me how comforting it is to listen to my voice? I don't know if you have, but I'm always happy to hear it. I hope you're enjoying your time here with us, and I'm very glad to see you. Welcome in. A tattooed man didn't hesitate to speak up.
Don't do it, Jen. It's either a trick or this guy wants to die. Listen, a shot. Fuck, Neon. You said this big metal bucket is? It's a fucking fortune,
said the man known as Jin.
And if he wants to die, then we both win.
He pulled the trigger at near point blank, and 3 things happened at once. Fowler screamed, bullets fell to the ground, having hit and fallen off Parsons' armor, and finally, Parsons grabbed Jean by the head and began to pound him bodily onto the ground, over and over. He stopped talking, then you have him talk. You do that a lot? Well, no worries, Necromancer. You like the voice for Neon? Heck yeah. Always happy to hear it too, Joey. It's really good to know. Without a word, the bandits knew what to do. Run away and don't bother looking back. Jean had dug his own grave, and there was no saving him. So Parsons slammed Jean again and again, as all the anger, fear, frustration, hate, and everything he had buried for so long was expressed in this one vicious act. The anger wasn't gone, but it was satisfied until the next time it was needed. Covered in blood and other things, Parsons looked toward the sky and shouted something between a scream and a howl before standing there, breathing deeply and hearing a baby cry. He had made her cry. Reality hit him harder than the bullets on the ground as he felt a deep, sinking sense of dread. He looked down at the body under him. He'd done worse. He'd done worse during the war, but somehow this was worse still. He hesitantly went back into Termi, and on the ground he saw Fowler curled around his gun and shaking. He didn't say anything. There was nothing he could say. He walked toward Shalana and looked down at her. He didn't know if he should touch her. He didn't know if he could. With 2 hands on the crib and one hanging next to him in defeat, his 4th reached over and gently stroked Shalana's cheek until she quieted down. He hoped, more than anything, that she'd never find out that roar was from him. Fowler had stopped shaking, but she still clung to his gun. He didn't say anything as he got behind the wheel again, and just sat there, quietly. Eventually, she found words.
When I was a child, I had an older brother, the only older sibling I had. My father took us hunting. My brother? He was invisible like the air. No one could see him if he didn't want them to. Then with my bow I fired at what I thought was an animal, and hit my brother in the leg.
She squeezed the gun closer, seeking comfort from the hard, cold metal that offered none.
He could not walk the same ever again, and became one of the elders at a young age. There is no other place for him but to record our history and to remember the old laws. A shameful thing. There would be no mating for him, no children. I ruined the great hunter.
She looked forward into nothing, worried that nothing was all that she had.
My father praised me.
After a moment's quiet, as Parsons looked for something, anything, to say to Fowler, she said,
I'm sorry.
Turning around suddenly, knocked out of his dark and horrible place by sheer shock, Parsons said,
You're sorry? For what?
I should have fought with you. I am a good aim, I think. I don't know, I haven't...
Shalana needed you, not me. I failed you both. I let something out that should never be free.
He stood up and approached Fowler as he reached down and slowly took the gun from her, offering her a hand up. Fowler took it, carefully standing, unsure of what was happening, but having just the slightest hope it was something good.
I was never in danger. This suit is well armored. Arrows and ballistics would have a hard time hurting it. You'd need something like, well...
He held up his gun in 2 massive arms.
This. It fires highly concentrated bolts of energy made to split atoms or...
He looked at Falor and realized she wouldn't understand a word of this.
It fires, let's call it plasma. That's the term most people called it, even if it isn't accurate. It can hurt me, it can hurt just about anything. I was never in danger, and it is not your job to protect me, all right?
Sorry, I just had to deal with something there. You're not smart enough to call it hard sci-fi, to write hard sci-fi, so you're gonna call it plasma? That is totally fair, Necromancer. It is not unreasonable to start with science fiction and move a little bit more in the fantasy direction. In fact, I think in some cases that can be a very solid choice. So, just understanding that the special guns that he has fire something that can hurt him is probably sufficient. Falor slowly nodded, looked toward the still open door, then at Parsons. She closed the door and walked toward the driver's seat. Go wash up and then go take a shower. I think we can still follow this map and reach the main road, and that will be much faster than running over trees. As Parsons reached for her and put a hand on her shoulder, she put one of her spider-like legs over his hand. It's okay. I want to at least help you, and you seriously need sleep. Go grab a pillow and, She didn't look at him. She wasn't sure what she'd feel if she did. Thank you.
Jen was a fucking idiot, and I told him not to fire.
Neon was currently arguing with another of the bandits, specifically Jan, Jean's brother. He should have known better than to hire siblings. People who are connected always cause problems.
There was a baby in there. We could have taken him hostage. I doubt the little bastard was bulletproof too. We could have fired at once. We don't know how many bullets that thing could take. Instead, we ran like cowards because you ran with your tail between your legs and your piss running down him.
Jan had yet to pull out his weapon. He knew often whoever pulled their weapon out first either won or died first, depending on the loyalty of the rest of the crew. Remember I said something similar when you saw writing was more thank you and how are you? See it. Oh, you were throwing in some thank yous. Okay, I see where you're going with this now, Necromancer. It's very neat to see some of my feedback being used in your writing. Very cool. Neon's was also across his back, not yet ready to take the risk himself of losing more of his people. His pistol was also an option, but he didn't want to escalate things after he'd already lost a man. He was also now angry at himself for hiring someone clever. That piss line was good. People were amused. People followed clever.
I ain't no fucking baby killer, and we don't know if more bullets would have helped.
Oh, what about that thing on your leg?
Jan motioned to the glowing green pistol, an ancient relic from a time long ago.
We had to find something that can stand up to it, right?
It was a bad idea, Jan. I expected a bunch of locals who didn't know what they had. Instead, we got something tall, powerful, and ready to kill us all. That guy was ready to kill. More than we were. Fucker radiated anger. Probably one of those weird clan monsters the king keeps on leash that escaped. I'm not messing with those. They're full of two things, drugs and violence.
Neon glanced at the others, realizing he'd need to appeal to them as well.
Besides, that thing they were driving, I recognized it. That's bunker tech, just like my gun. There's a bunker nearby I've been keeping an eye on. If that thing is running around here, that means the bunker is probably open, and we can go get whatever's still there. I started my career with an open bunker, and trust me, those things are full of treasure and tech beyond your wildest dreams.
The others seemed to suddenly be much more receptive to Neon's words, though he noticed Jan's posture didn't change. He didn't care about profit right now. That was bad. That meant Neon had to find another way to calm Jan down. So Neon did something he knew no one expected. He expressed sympathy.
I'm sorry, Jen. I'm sorry about Jen. We're worse off for having lost him.
Neon was very careful about who he hired. No psychopaths, no one too eager to please. He wanted survivors who had at least a glimmer of sense and a dab of ethics, keeping things going smoothly. The rest of his group seemed to calm down, sensing the tension would be gone soon. Jan, however, was determined to prove Neon right about never hiring siblings. He pulled out his gun and aimed it at Neon as he shouted,
"Fuck you for saying his name!"
but stopped as he saw the look in Neon's eyes. Suddenly, Neon was running toward their nearby transport, two-wheeled motor vehicles they had found and rebuilt. Neon was more afraid of something he had just seen than the man holding a gun at him. Everyone who had been facing the same way Neon had was doing the same. Everyone who did not slowly turned around to see what the panic was about, or in a few other cases, screamed. Red eyes. So many red eyes in the dark, and with them silence, until finally they attacked, and the sounds of screams and metal and blood echoed in the clearing. They were as tall as the four-armed monster they'd met, possibly taller, and they looked like metallic skeletons. The big difference was the lower arms. They didn't end in hands. They ended in sharp and dangerous blades. Jan had just enough time to make for his own motorcycle as the robots began to tear into them. Neon knew every man for himself situation when he found one.
"Go! Get out of here! Split up and meet back at the base!"
Was as much support as he was willing to give as he began to drive off, only to realize some idiots were following him, and even worse, some of the red-eyed robots followed as well. His third arm reached down and took out his pistol with its glowing green tubes, and he fired behind him. He hit a robot right in the mouth and knocked the lower jaw off its head. As its head was flung backward, its steps fumbled. After a brief moment, it kept coming, damaged, but still bloodthirsty. You really should just call the rides motorcycles. I find that tends to be easier. This is not a Vidar rabbit. They chased him at an incredible speed, caught up quickly as the ground beneath them was dug up and thrown into the air by metal claws. One got close and bit Neon's arm, the sharp pain of metal teeth sinking into his skin. He stopped completely and quickly turned around on his back wheel, his arms ripped apart from the sudden removal of the metal teeth as the mechanic beasts tried all at once stop running into each other. They flipped over, finding themselves unable to halt in time, a few turning around just in time to slam into others who didn't. Neon thread a needle through the confused metal monsters as he looked down at his shredded arm. He shouted,
"I still have 2 more, you pathetic excuses for predators!"
The robotic terrors stopped, looked at him, and 2 gave chase as the others looked for other things to chase and kill. One that was missing its lower jaw had found tracks on the ground, tracks from a military vehicle it recognized. They quickly gave chase as the others were preoccupied. A man literally drove circles around them. Jan was firing his gun every chance he could as he drove his motorcycle around the bestial robots in a circle. They kept jumping to try and tackle him, but were always a second too late. The gun's bullets only, at best, made a few dents in their metal skeletal bodies, but it didn't matter. Jan was having fun.
"Fuck off, you relics of yesterday's mistakes! Y'all ain't getting shit from me! Come on, show me what you got and I'll show you what you lack!"
Some of the robotic terrors just watched, unsure of what to do, but one of them picked up a nearby gun from a dead body of one of Jan's former comrades. A shotgun. Nothing special, but it looked over at Jan. Then it fired at where Jan was going to be instead of where he was. He spun out, his leg bled, his cycle ruined, and he fell on his side. Briefly pinned by his own cycle before he pushed it off of him and stood up, pulling a knife.
Come on then, you useless vanity dolls. I ain't afraid of you.
The one who had the shotgun slowly approached Jen, gun not exactly pointed at him. He looked down at Jen, then leaned over to look him in the eyes.
Why would we?
Why would we need you to be afraid of us to kill you? It sounded genuinely curious, but Jan had never heard of these things talking, so he did the only thing he could think to. The knife ran across its artificial eye. The blade snapped in two, leaving a cut across the glowing metal eye as the robot let out a screech of surprise and fired its gun directly into Jan's face. It looked down at Jan, curiously, and then turned around and looked up at the sky. Slowly, it became aware that it was awake. Neon had done his best to stop the bleeding while he drove. He'd kept going because certain death was a great motivator, and it was following him. He only stopped when he reached the old bunker he knew was nearby. He had been right. Great gashes in the ground proved the robotic terrors that had been buried here had unburied themselves. Neon didn't really approve. He thought the past should stay buried, especially when it was trying to kill him, unless he could make a profit off of it. He noticed a large latch built into the ground and grabbed a crowbar on the side of his bike. Trying to open it proved worthless, but he did manage to bend the pry bar a little bit out of shape. When he heard the robots coming, he dashed into a nearby open door, the one Parsons had entered so long ago when he went to kill everyone he could find, and found Shilana instead. The robots stopped and looked around. One grabbed the latch where Neon had damaged it and attempted to pry it open. The robot's metal joints creaked and strained. The second one went for the entrance Neon was in. Neon still had his pistol that could harm these things, but it would take more than one shot. Too many shots. He began to fiddle with some controls on the pistol, and soon words in a language he didn't understand began to shout from it. He didn't know what it said, but he knew the tone. He didn't know what it said, but he knew the tone. Warning, stop trying to do the thing you're doing, it's dangerous. He didn't stop, and when the robot showed its face and its jaw opened, it prepared to pounce. Neon threw the overcharged old tech pistol at it. It exploded, taking the robot with it. Shrapnel embedded itself all around the room as Neon felt some graze his leg. He was lucky to be alive, and he knew it. Slowly he stood, blood trailing down his leg, and frankly not in a good mood at all as he went to check on the second robot. Neon watched as it strained its arms trying to open the latch. Its body seemed to be fighting against itself. Its arms cracked and strained and bent in an attempt to open the bunker. Neon wondered just what could be in there that it was worth all the harm it did to itself. The latch broke, and it flew open as the robot's arms shattered and bent, leaving behind only an armless torso, all 4 of its upper limbs torn away. Its legs were also in bad shape as the robot slowly slid down a ramp under the hatch. Neon realized it was helpless, so he walked toward the now open latch.
You poor bastards really have no sense of self-preservation. It'd be a useful weakness to know if you weren't so insanely tough.
The robot snapped its jaws at him, but he was too far away for it to matter. He took out a match, followed by a paper tube full of a calming plant matter. Neon lit his smoke up and took a long puff as he looked inside the bunker. It was enough for him to set up for life. He looked back at the robot.
I'd offer you smoke, but you'd bite my hand off.
To his surprise, it spoke. Then I would have taken 2 of your hands. He gave it a nice long look. He should be upset. This thing cost him his arm. Still, it had lost much more than him. Neon sat on a nearby table inside the bunker.
Yeah, you would. Why did you want in here so badly?
Sigh, was all the thing said as Neon sat there. He looked for any medical supplies he recognized and found a few things that would be useful, especially the bandages. Sterile bandages were a rarity in his line of work.
Heard about them here and there. Even hired an expert on them after I found my first bunker. Made a small fortune in smuggling stuff in there I found as a kid.
He had actually been in his mid-20s, but had reached the cynicism required to think of himself as a kid back then.
Saw a few of your kind too. Even got attacked by one once. It was also after Psy and thought I was one. But I talked to my historian and you know what?
He slammed a foot next to the robot.
Hooves! I have hooves, idiot! 3 arms, nostrils with a damn bulbous pointy bit, no tail, no pale skin. Pale skin? Look at me. I'm not a fucking Psy!
The robot was quiet. It seemed to be listening. Necromancers also reached that level of cynicism to consider 20s child. I can certainly empathize with that. You love the robotic terrors. You have a rule for yourself. The terrors are always dangerous. Nothing can trivialize their threat. It's there to prevent silly power scaling and making new enemies stronger than the last one over and over. I like that idea, that they simply are a serious problem and you do not want to mess with them. Neon walked toward the old military vehicles, realized most of them were gutted, and put his hand on one.
Well, time to call my main men. Lots to sell here.
With a smile, Neon turned toward the broken heap on the ground.
You, though.
You
I keep.
When Parsons woke up, Termi had stopped and the door was open. After some initial panic, he realized there was a fire at Falor outside. He got up, actually feeling well rested, and walked out next to her under the starry sky.
You're cooking outside?
Termi has many things, but a place to make food and fire isn't one of them.
Making the hydrates legal? I see. Well, thank you, Necromancer. Hydration complete. Parsons realized he had neglected putting anything to actually prepare food with into Termi.
Most of the food I brought is ready to eat, right out of the package or can.
He looked at the pan over the fire. It was full of unopened cans.
You're supposed to open those.
How? Fowler said as frustration built up. She'd spent an hour hitting one with a rock, and all she'd done was dent it. Parsons came back inside and came out with 4 things. A small plasma pistol, because he didn't feel safe anywhere, a circular device with a hole in the middle attached to a rod, a full baby bottle, and a baby. The circle looked like it was made of segments, and after the cans cooled down, he put the circle around the top of one. The empty space in the middle was closed in on by the circle's edge, as the segments went into each other and tightened until it was all wrapped up. Parsons pushed a button, and with a clink, the top of the can was cut off. It revealed beans that could be anywhere from several hundred to several thousand years old. Parsons didn't question it. He was just glad it was beans and not mold. He poured a few beans into a cylinder on his waist that slowly began to blend them.
I can't eat normally due to the shoot, so I need to blend things up and put it through a filter. Then it goes into a straw into my mouth. Hot food can damage the system, so cold only.
After he opened another can for Falor, she mumbled,
That's just sad.
Well, it's that or the toxic air destroys my lungs and makes me rot from the inside.
Parsons shrugged and ate his bean paste and hoped he didn't throw up. He didn't know how his suit would handle vomit. You're slightly proud that it's not a normal... You are slightly proud of that not a normal can opener. I see, Necromancer. Fowler ate some mystery meat as the two of them sat by the fire, with Shalana drinking from a bottle in Parsons' lower arms.
I'm sorry you can't leave that suit. It must be difficult. Have your kind always lived in them?
Fowler was carefully stacking up empty cans. She was saving them in case they might magically become useful later.
No, not really, though this does sort of remind me of when I was a child.
He put some water into a separate cylinder on the other side of his waist.
When Brutalians are born, we live in a pouch on our mother for a few years, drinking milk and such that she produces, and sometimes sticking our heads out.
Oh, that's neat. My people are born in eggs, covered in this thick goo from our mother's birthing canal, and when born, we eat the shell, goo, and sometimes little bugs that came to eat the goo too. We just have to watch the little ones so they don't actually accidentally eat each other.
Parsons was struck silent as he looked at Fowler. Eventually, he said,
That's horrifying.
After a quick swallow of her food, she looked up at him.
You are raised in a flesh pouch and drink your mother's juices.
Parsons let out a small laugh and looked down at Shalana as she finished her bottle.
That's true, I suppose. I apologize if I'm being insensitive. Do you miss your people?
It was a horribly awkward question in Fowler's mind. She rubbed the back of her head as she looked into the fire.
Sometimes. I want to explore the world, though, and you're my way of doing that.
That, and they did sort of send you to die at my hands. That would make me at least slightly upset.
Aw.
Fowler reached into her clothing and retrieved an old and worn black circular device with a red light in the middle.
I was actually sent to attach this to you. My father thought you were one of the middlemen awakened, and any time that happened in the past, we attached one of these to them. We found several in the jungle over the years. When I realized you were not, what?
They still function?
There was a fright in Parsons' voice that filled Fowler with dread. She'd seen this man smash someone's head in after getting blasted by a shotgun. What could scare him?
No, well, sometimes, in the past, we tried to talk to them, but they always end up attacking. I was sent after you because of my good aim. Is everything
Parsons was looking in the distance. A hand reached up to fiddle with some buttons on his helmet, and suddenly he stood up.
Get in, now!
Okay, just let me put the fire. Hey!
Fowler felt Parsons physically grab her and take her inside as she handed Shalana to her and got behind the wheel. He nearly forgot to close the door.
What's going on?
I saw red eyes!
After a moment, Fowler shouted,
Parsons, that doesn't explain anything.
He took a deep breath and looked down at the radar.
We called them the robotic terrors because that's what they are. Robots with one goal, to kill the Psy like Shalana. They were very good at it. They have metal limbs, can rip apart nearly anything. Lower limbs have sharp knives that would never dull. The alloy that they're made from is incredibly tough and durable, insanely so. If they're still somehow functioning, they can rip a hole in this machine and tear us apart.
Even in your armor?
Fowler looked at their small but powerful armory. She grabbed what she thought to be a plasma pistol and clutched it to her chest.
I don't know. I've never seen one fight a brew before. Even if it can't, I don't know if I can keep away from Shalana if it breaks in. Fowler, take the driver's seat. There's a gun on top of Terry I can get access to.
Without bothering to wait for her as he got up and reached for a hatch on the ceiling, then opened it up as Fowler quickly got in the driver's seat. Just as she got them going straight down the wide dirt road, they traveled the entire world seemed to jump and shake. Fowler shouted,
Was that the terror?
No!
Parsons shouted as he targeted the terror for a second ground-shaking shot. It was moving fast and with agility that was frighteningly impressive. Just when he thought he had another clean shot, the damn thing darted to the left. The The ground shook and the massive gun left a crater.
I forgot how smart these things are.
Falor said nothing. Shilana was crying. Neither had time to attend to her, as suddenly the entire vehicle lurched right. Parsons got down quickly and grabbed his gun as they heard the sound of metal ripping off the side, layers of armor alloy being torn away. Eventually, a hole formed on the side of Termi. Parsons quickly fired at it, only for the terror to pull its head back. Its claws grabbed the side of the hole and made it bigger as he fired a second time. The terror was being smart now, keeping away from the blasts as Parsons felt bile rise in his throat. He remembered the time he saw them swarm a building and kill everyone inside. He remembered being ordered to help clean afterwards. He remembered old animal documentaries, of all things, where a predator would dig into a burrow full of prey and drag one out to eat. How quiet and terrible it was. He often wondered what it must be like, seeing your home dug open as you huddled in the corner with no hope, and could only wait for the predator to grab you and drag you out. He didn't wonder anymore. He fired again and again. His gun eventually stopped firing as it needed to recharge.
Frack!
He tossed the gun away and went toward the armory just as the terror pushed itself inside. Another gun went off and hit the terror in the neck, knocking its body from its head as Falor looked at the metallic beast. The eyes were still bright red. Parsons grabbed it and rushed toward the driver's seat. He pulled a few wires from under the console.
That was amazing, Falor. Thank you. Okay, I need to hook this up.
Why are you not killing the Sai?
Why are you not killing the Sai? The terror said in a deep, terrible voice.
It can talk?
Falor hated it more and more. The fact that Shilana was crying and Parsons was busy with whatever this is didn't help her mood. Parsons hooked up a wire to the small port in the skull, ignoring them both. On a screen next to Falor, a text box warned of an unauthorized user popped up. She couldn't read it and could only be annoyed. Parsons continued to ignore her and began to work on a nearby console full of buttons. Eventually, the eyes began to glow a bright blue on the metal skull. Parsons put it down and rushed toward Shilana, picking her up and cradling her, holding her to his chest with massive upper arms.
It's okay. The eyes are now set to change color if another terror comes within 30 miles. We're safe. It's okay.
What is going on? Asked the skull as it bounced on the floor. Why did he not end the screaming by shooting it?
Parsons, the evil killer metal severed head keeps talking.
Yes, they do that.
He gently carried Shilana as his foot came up to kick the terror's body off of Termi and let it fall on the ground behind. He'd have to patch up the hole later, but as he looked outside, he saw the sun coming up.
Falor, you've been watching over me all night. I think I can take over if you want to sleep.
Falor slowed down and hesitantly got up. She poked the skull with a foot.
It's still alive?
They're not alive.
Parsons sat down, moved Shilana to his lower arms, and adjusted the seat.
Sure acts like it's alive, just, I'm going to want to know more later, alright?
This scene is a good example of Parsons just not explaining things. It really kind of is. I love it, though. He nodded as he went back to the sleep. He looked down at the robot. He nodded as she went back to sleep. He looked down at the robot, wondered if he shouldn't disable its vocals, and decided he could do it later. Right now, he had to keep driving toward the next bunker, and disabled vocals would take precious time away from driving, sitting, holding Shilana, and trying not to think about the robotic terrors. Despite his best efforts, he remembered them, and what he remembered most was the very moment he had become truly afraid of them. His troop consisted of less than a dozen people and more than a dozen of the terrors. They were faced with a tall, wide concrete building that had been made to house hundreds and hundreds of Sai. They often had buildings like this built for function over form. Horribly ugly, But they did their job of giving people a place to sleep or work or forget. The good-looking places were reserved for the oligarchs, after all. They had no proper artillery and didn't want to wait for it, so his commander had sent in the robots. He remembered very well how they swarmed as they were shot at, torn apart, harmed, and in a few cases nearly broken, but they never stopped. They didn't know how. He remembered the war vehicle the enemy had, much like Termi, that got quickly swarmed by a few of the terrors and torn apart like a tin can. The screams inside as the monsters forced their way in, ripped the gun off top, and went in from there as it tried and failed to drive away, were hard to forget. The worst was the Psy who had jumped. They had been on the 10th floor, far too high to survive the jump, but decided it was a better fate than facing the terrors. The terrors didn't let them. A metallic hand covered in sharp fingers reached out, speared the Psy's leg as they screamed, and they were pulled back inside. Metal jaws clamped around their head and crushed it. Parsons realized right then and there the difference between him and the terrors. He just wanted the Psy gone. The terrors wanted to murder them. He'd had to clean them off after that. He'd find them caked in blood and gore and even some clothing. Some of the clothes, he remembered, had patterns you wouldn't see on an adult's clothes. He unconsciously clutched Shalana closer to him and caused her to let out a little murmur of discomfort before he relaxed. "Why is the Psy still alive?" came a robotic voice from the metal skull near his feet. Parsons felt his body twitch suddenly, then reminded himself to stay calm. He focused on the road ahead.
She's a baby.
After a moment of silence, the skull spoke again, despite its lack of a lower jaw, despite it being just ahead. It was still working. "That seems like the best time to kill one. They are very defenseless."
I am not killing a baby.
Parsons had 4 arms, but 2 were busy driving and 1 was holding a baby. He'd need to look away from the road to turn off this thing's vocals. It involved inside work. He was starting to regret not taking the time to do so. "You are waiting for it to grow up?" The skull's tone sounded confused, as much as a monotone robotic voice could.
Her name is Shalana. I am not going to kill her. What happened was not her fault.
The terror was quiet for a time. If nothing else, its confusion was useful for keeping it quiet for a few minutes. Unfortunately, that didn't last. "They do not need to be at fault. We were told to kill them. Most had no part in the destruction of your kind. It is not their guilt that makes them targets for extermination. It is their existence." There was no malice in the way the terror spoke. In a way, that was all the worse. Its words were not born of its own hate, but a belief in them as fact.
Why?
Parsons asked sharply, trying his best to ignore the conversation he was actively participating in. "They are tools of an overbearing power
That's gone!"
he interrupted. It seemed to work. Things went quiet. Parsons finally decided to raise the armored shutters a bit more and gain a better view of the road. The sun had finally come up. Morning was here, and he looked ahead of him as he slowly rolled to a halt. It was a village made of clay and wood. He'd seen things like it in history books, part of developing civilizations. The thing that really surprised him, though, was what was behind it. He'd remembered the giant fort, made of armored metal and once connected to a great wall. The fort had survived. The wall had not. Most of all, he remembered when he'd stormed it and killed its occupants. People in the village were coming out, looking at Termi in the distance. Many looked similar to the bandits. He lowered the shutters again, looked at the skull to make sure no other terrors were coming, stood up, made sure Shalana was comfortable, and decided to wait for Fowler to wake up and, just in case, grabbed his gun. He hoped he wouldn't need it. Ah, this was the same terror that Neon shot the jaw off of. It got its jaw shot off and said, "Nah, I'm not going after the one anymore. I'm going after these ones instead." I like it, Necromancer. And with that, we come to the end of Chapter 3, Chapter 2. However, I have started a little bit late tonight, and I really do need to make sure that I get to bed at a reasonable hour. So, I think we are going to wrap up here, but I really appreciate everybody dropping in and joining us here. So, let's go ahead and find a raid target. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. Seeing who's all online. I see some folks, many I don't recognize, and that's alright. Well, I'm glad your sister appreciates this necromancer, and I hope that she gets to enjoy it as well. There are people, many, many people. We'll search through the people looking for someone to rate. Doop, 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 doop. Boop, boop, boop. So many folks. Let's see if we can find some more reading type stuff. You know what? This is somebody purple. They look like they've been up for around an hour too. So we'll go ahead and drop into this new person and see how things go. Thank you very much for joining me here. I hope you're all enjoying the story as much as I am. Necromancer has been doing a fantastic job on it. We will come back next week for what I believe is the third chapter out of 4, and we will dive back into it then. But in the meanwhile, I'm glad you've joined our stream today. Stream here ends the stream here. But it's time to go our separate ways. Yes, it's time to end the stream here. Stream here ends the stream here. Oh, stream here ends the stream here. For the software's scuffed and the bit rate's low, and it's time to end the stream here. Until next time, I'll be waiting.